When you're starting a brand new lawn, growing the lawn from seed is still the time-honored method of growing that lawn. Well, I'm here at a turf farm in Kennebunk, Maine. And you can see that even the professionals can have challenges at times growing the lawn from seed. This was put down 3 weeks ago. A week after that, a heavy rain came and washed away most of the seed. So 3 weeks later, you've got just a very sparse covering of turf. This section of the Down East Turf Farm was seeded about 6 weeks ago before the heavy rainy season, and you can see where the turf is starting to come in much nicer. Now, here at a sod farm where conditions are ideal, it can still take up to a year to grow a crop of green grass that looks like this magic carpet. And at your home where conditions may not be ideal, it can take a year or more. Well, the good news is this sod can be harvested using modern technology and installed on your property oftentimes within a day. It's also a project you can do yourself. But before we talk about how to do that, let's watch how this sod is harvested. Harvesting the sod is accomplished with machines that cut the grass just below the soil surface, separating the grass into 9-foot strips. A conveyor belt rolls each strip that is then manually lifted and stacked onto a pallet for transport to a job site. It's a two-man back-breaking job that requires both strength and precision. Now that sod you just saw harvested, that's on its way to some landscape contractors for a job that's going to be installed later today. And we're going to go watch that installation. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about sod as it relates to soil management at your own home. Now you can see that the layer of soil here on this piece of sod is less than 1/2 inch thick. It's very, very thin. That means you've got to prepare the soil ahead of time at your own home prior to the arrival of the sod, because it's not going to persist on this little 1/2 inch that's left behind. I recommend about 6 to 12 inches of soil prepared well before the sod arrives. In fact, I like to add in a lot of compost, 3 to 6 inches in fact, as much as you can afford to work into the soil ahead of time. Then you're going to want to grate it and roll it and then put the sod down. But let's go watch how some pros do it first. Whether you're starting a lawn from seed or laying down sod, the preparation process is exactly the same. Lay down as much healthy soil mixed with compost as you can afford and grate it into place, making sure to keep the soil level or even slope it away from your house so that no water gathers near the foundation. Compacting the soil with a lawn roller is usually a good idea, unless your soil is mostly heavy clay. Now Al, this looks like it's just about ready to go. How'd you prep this?
Basically what we did is we roughed up all the loam, got it all flat, got it all graded out, and typically this time of year we don't have to fertilize because it's already been fertilized on the sod itself at the fields. Okay. So basically we're not going to bother with that today. So we're just going to go right ahead and lay it right in.
And now you just download this?
Yep.
How long is it going to take you to cover this area?
This here, about 15-20 minutes.
All right.
All done.
We'll see.
All right.
Now Al, I notice you guys are taking extra pains to get these butts in really nice and tight.
Right. Basically the reason for that is what we like to do is have the joints staggered.
Okay.
Same idea as like shingles or bricks.
Okay.
And what happens if you take half a piece, start your next one.
Okay.
Seam it in nice and tight. What that does is it keeps the edges from drying out, burning out, and you don't end up with those funny seams, so you get potholes basically in your lawn.
Okay. Now if you do wind up with some spaces after the sod is laid, you just take some soil and you fill in the cracks?
You can do that. You shouldn't have to,
okay,
but that is one method of taking care of it.
You fill in the cracks and put some seed down if you have
right.
to?
Blend the same kind of seed. But typically when you're doing this, if somebody's right here all the time placing in, you shouldn't have any joints whatsoever. That's a properly laid job.
When you're done, talk about watering.
Watering is the key. If you don't get enough water on this, a lot of bad things are going to happen to you. A lot of sod nowadays is really grown 8 to 10 months. Yeah. That's a very quick season. It's been fertilized, it's been limed, it's been watered, it's been manicured.
Right.
So this stuff is very tender. As soon as we're done with this, we want to make sure we get water on it. Best thing to do is try and get it watered twice a day, morning and afternoon.
Okay.
I prefer not to have it watered at nighttime. I'm afraid you get too much disease problems with the water just laying there, waiting for the sun to come back up.
Right.
That is the key. And trying to water it every day, at least once a day, if twice a day, is the best.
Okay.
And try and do that for the first couple of weeks, and you can kind of back it off just a little bit, what the weather dictates.
When you're done with this, is it a good idea to take a lawn roller over at one pass?
It can be. On this lawn right here, we're probably not going to do it because the soil underneath is so hard.
Okay.
It's got a lot of clay in it.
Yeah.
I may not bother with that today, but a lot of times you should. You should take and run the roller across it, because most of your loam's pretty much fluffy. This just happens to be a heavy clay loam. So.
Okay, and if you run that roller over it and you see an indentation, you can peel the sod back and fix it right then.
Exactly. And we just did that on that last job we just did on a soccer field.
Yeah.
Is go back afterwards, find the imperfections, pull it up, put some loam in, pack it back down, and take care of it.
Good. All right. Well, you got it. You're about 12 minutes. You got 3 minutes to go.
No problem. Challenge is on.
Okay. With most of the sod in place, the lawn can be trimmed to fit any configuration. A box cutter or X-Acto knife will work fine. You can also use a straight-bladed spade, provided you keep the edges of the spade nice and sharp. Now, whenever I've installed sod myself, I've tried to be careful and not walk across the newly laid grass. But these landscape pros, however, show that you definitely don't need to baby your new sod. If you're looking for immediate gratification, you can't beat sod. Here's the before, and just 15 minutes later, the after. Boy, those landscapers sure make it look easy to lay sod, don't they? Well, let me tell you something. One roll of sod, which is about 18 inches wide and 9 feet long, it weighs more than 25 pounds, and that's when it's relatively dry. You get these sod strips wet, they can weigh up to 40 pounds, so it is a lot of work. I also want to make the point that when you get the sod home, you want to unroll it as quickly as possible, because sod rolled up onto itself like this will start to heat up. The grass will actually get very, very hot, and it can kill itself in less than a day, especially in the middle of the summer. I want to make one last point about sod using my own front lawn as an example. When we planted this a few years ago, the original sod had been grown with chemicals. There are hardly any organic sod growers anywhere in the United States. That doesn't mean that you can't have a great organic lawn. Prepare the soil using organic fertilizers, apply some compost tea, top dress with some compost, or mix it into the soil, and that sod that you bought from the chemical grower will transition to an organic system, and you can have a great looking lawn